Anybody here who's ever done any type of field editing or data editing within ArcGIS Pro knows how significant it is to have reliable data for your users to use. Today, I will be using some of ArcGIS Pro's newest data editing functionality to help simplify some of these workflows for us. Specifically looking at Hamilton, Ontario, there's approximately 14,000 fire hydrants throughout the city. Now, if you ask me, by looking at this data, that's a lot of fire hydrants. So let's start by narrowing down this data. By using a spatial definition query, we can simply apply a spatial clause to our data to simply narrow down the area of interest that we would like to analyze for today. By doing this on all of our layers, this makes our data much more manageable to handle and much easier to do our edits with. By simply applying that filter, we could see that our data set is much smaller now, much easier to work with, which is amazing. So let's now start looking at some edits that can be made. By looking at an area of interest for today, there's a couple points here that we're going to be editing. Let's start by thinking about how we can make our edits easy to read. For this instance, I've applied an attribute rule on the same layer that I applied my filter on, our fire hydrants layer. For this attribute rule, I utilized one of our new attribute rule templates, specifically the Generate ID template. This template allows me to select a field. In our case, this is our hydrant value, and it allows me to simply follow the naming convention that we have within our attribute table by using this field, which is amazing. Let's see how this looks in the works. We'll go ahead and start by turning on our labels here. Here, we're only going to see the labels for our pre-existing features pop up. And we'll go ahead and we'll turn on our distance and directions measurement layer here. Perfect. Okay, so our labels didn't show up in this situation, but we're going to show you guys how this looks. There we go. When we go ahead and we create some new labels here, we got them to generate now, which is good. In this instance, we could see here we've got a couple fire hydrants in our area of interest, which is amazing, and we're going to make some edits on these. So on fire hydrant on the right-hand side, hydrant 1809, this fire hydrant specifically is being decommissioned. So it's our job where our measurements are that were calculated using the distance and direction measurement tool in ArcGIS Pro to simply add in a new fire hydrant at this location for us. So let's go ahead and start doing that. Here I'm going to zoom into our point here, and since our calculations have been made approximately 90 meters apart from the other fire hydrant in the area, let's simply go ahead and add in a point. So we'll create a new fire hydrant layer, and since I have snapping turned on, this is very easy to do. And automatically, we'll see there, a new label has been generated following the schema that I've set up within our attribute rules. So the numbers are going to keep adding on sequentially as we go on and add in new features. Now, since the fire hydrant nearby is only being decommissioned, we in fact want to transfer over the attributes from our data, including the attributes and the naming from the decommissioned fire hydrant to this new fire hydrant that I've now created. The only thing that's changing here realistically is the location of our data. So let's zoom in and do that. Using the new Transfer Attributes tool, we can simply select the tool in our editing menu, select our old point or our decommissioned fire hydrant that we would like to start our edits with, and simply click our new point and transfer over the attributes. And there we go. Now all of our attributes for this corresponding fire hydrant have been transferred over to our new feature. So that's great. We can go ahead and now finish our edit with this specific layer. So let's turn on our distance and directions again, and now I'll simply add in a feature to connect our fire hydrant to our water main to wrap up this edit. Simply drawing a line or measurement line here, and double-clicking to finish our edit, we could see that our new feature has now been created with our measurements and is ready to be used. Now we're going to wrap things up and kind of delete our old feature here since we don't need it anymore, the one for the decommissioned fire hydrant. And we can simply just delete these features. Okay, so now that we've done that edit on our data, we've transferred over the attributes using that very powerful tool. Let's zoom out and let's see if there's any more edits that need to be made within the area. Specifically within this area of analysis, we've got a couple more edits to be made actually, and we're going to specifically look at one more for today. But by utilizing one of our new menus available within ArcGIS Pro, specifically the vertices and nodes menu, we can see how editing your data is now simplified. Seeing things by having this menu turned on, you could see things like vertices, dangles, and nodes within your data. And that's incredible because they're all represented by different logos, and this will visually make your editing capabilities much easier within the software. So let's close out of this menu and turn this on. Here we could see automatically hydrant 7077 has an edit that needs to be done. And we could see that because it's represented by the dangle logo, a red square. And that means that our feature is incomplete. So let's simply finish this feature, and we'll use our extend tools to do this. By selecting our feature at hand, and by going into our editing menu, we can simply select our extend tools and extend our node to the water main line. Now, one thing to note here, since I have snapping turned on, I can click anywhere along this water main line, and it's automatically going to do that edit for me and continue the feature in the direction that it was originally created in. That's a great feature to have, if you ask me. Now that our edits are complete, I'm going to make sure that my layer is saved and published to ArcGIS Online, where Sue will walk us through some of the additional capabilities that we can look at in terms of applications when it comes to data editing.
Thank you, Justin. So I'm going to take us into ArcGIS Online, where I'm going to check some of that field data before we go out for verification using a new app for ArcGIS Online called Web Editor. Now, you may notice Web Editor looks similar to the map viewer. However, the tools are very streamlined, so it's easy to use if you're a non-GIS user, but we do provide some more advanced capabilities if you are an experienced GIS user. I've already opened the map I want to work with, and I'm just going to check some areas, and I noticed that in this area, that the water main connection to this hydrant is missing. So to add that, some of the tools in Web Editor allow me to place a grid, which I can align and lock to my existing features. I can also turn on snapping, and I can snap to existing layers as well as to the grid. To create a new feature in Web Editor, I have a different set of tools depending on the type of feature I'm creating. So in this case, I'm working with a line. I'm going to start with that straight line. And if you notice the snapping is coming in, I'm going to snap right to the end of that water main. Now, Web Editor also gives you some keyboard shortcuts, which allow you to go in and add, say, a constraint. For example, I'm going to add 10 meters for this first part. I might have gotten that from an as-built. So even if I snap to the grid, the first vertex is added at 10 meters. And I could do deflection and other things like direction. I'm simply going to snap to the end of that hydrant lateral. And the form for my feature pops up, and I have some default sets, so I'm just going to create that. Now, Web Editor also provides capability to do batch edits. So for that, I'm going to work with a different set of features. The features on the map that you see are ArcGIS Field Map Task, a new layer type, which will work within the field in a moment. But because they're just a feature layer, I can edit them in another app, such as Web Editor. So to use the batch editing, first I'm going to make sure that I only have my hydrant assignments on. So these are going to tell our field workers where to go and what to do. I'll select a small subset and then bring up the batch editing. Now, field map tasks are created and configured in Designer, but I can work with that form in Web Editor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this work to someone I know who is working in the area and make the due date to today. And Web Editor also allows you to save your map and your tools to an app using our new Web Editor Instant App templates. So now I'm going to switch over to the field, and for this, we're going to look at my iPad. This is where we're going to see tasks light up in Field Maps mobile app. So I'm going to open up that map, and we can see the to-do list now. So this is my work, and I have different types of filters I can, again, figure in Field Maps Designer. In this case, these are high priority that are assigned to me, but I could also view unassigned work. that if I can pick up something I see that is going on near me. I can also change how I sort those tasks, either by distance, type, or priority. But let's go back to those ones that are assigned to me. I'm going to pick the one that is closest to my location. Now, I could get directions, or I could just get a compass distance and bearing if I'm nearby. I'm going to start this. And when I start the task, it alerts anyone back in the office that I have started that work. I have different actions configured for that task. What I notice is this hydrant, oops, let's go back to that one. Let me cancel out of adding, there we go. This hydrant is actually in violation. So I'm just going to change that and update that point. And then I can actually go and get information about the hydrant feature itself that I'm going to be inspecting. And I can now see all the related records for hydrant inspections. But I'm going to actually go in and add a new one. And I'm going to say that this hydrant is in very poor condition, it's not operable, and it actually needs some maintenance. So I will submit that new inspection. I've also noticed that the nearby hydrant also is in violation. So to update that, I'm going to use the Edit Multiple capabilities that is available now in Field Maps. I'm going to select these two hydrants. And then I'm going to see the form, and I can see there sometimes are multiple values, but I'm just going to update the inspection date to today. And finally, I'm going to add a task, because I can do that now in the field. So I'm going to assign this to myself, because I'm going to complete this inspection. So another violation of high priority, assign it to myself. I could also leave it unassigned for someone to pick it up. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish that first assignment. And note that tasks work while disconnected in an offline environment as well as connected, as you've seen today. And they also replace the ArcGIS Workforce app for a more streamlined workflow. So we hope that you've seen some useful edits today that you can do with the new tools in ArcGIS Desktop, Online, and mobile, and that we have inspired you to try using field map tasks to streamline your mobile operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue and Justin.